Okay, good evening everyone and welcome to our council meeting tonight. We have two sessions. One is the public session and then council will go into a closed session. I'd like to begin with
new agenda.
Oh, okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. Apparently this is a new agenda. Okay, on your agenda, number 13.1 is postponed because our staff member has become ill. And so 13.6, I'd like to add it will be the new 13.6, and that is the Remembrance Day ceremony. Is there any other additions to the agenda?
No, Madam Mayor, that's all administration has.
Okay. Council, any additions? Okay, I will call for a motion.
We'll move it.
Councillor Forrest moves to adopt the agenda. Approval of minutes for, what? I'm sorry. All in favor? Carried. Approval of minutes. Under 6.1, we have the organizational meeting. I can't see. Better put my glasses on. Sorry. We're going to have the public hearing right now for the proposed face covering bylaw. And I am the mayor, Crystal McAteer, and I'm going to call this meeting public hearing to order at 7:02. Council is here to listen to the information presented and make a decision on the matter that is subject of this hearing, which is the face covering bylaw. This is a formal hearing. It is not a debate. Anyone who wishes to speak or who has pre-registered will be given an opportunity to speak once the matter is called upon by myself. Each presenter must state his or her full name, address, and their interest in this matter, including whether they are in support or non-support. Individuals who do not identify themselves will not be given the opportunity to speak. Presenters are to stay within a 5-minute time limit on the presentation and are encouraged when speaking to keep presentation to point and refrain from restating points raised by previous speakers. I'm going to call upon the CAO right now to introduce the subject of the hearing, and once the CAO has completed, council members may ask questions for clarification only. So CAO.
Madam Mayor, administration is presenting face covering bylaw number 1013-20 to council for second reading. The proposed bylaw is in your package. After first reading, with a couple of small amendments just to fix numbering and other just minor technicalities in the previous bylaw. After council moved the first reading, administration was asked to garner public feedback. So with your discretion, Madam Mayor, I would like to call on Mr. Schnarr to outline how that survey was facilitated and what the results were.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening. You might have to speak up because it's very difficult to hear with this.
Okay. So we put, after we were asked to find public information from local businesses and also local residents, we had to find a way to do so that we can ensure the information that we were getting was actually coming from high-level residents. specifically and businesses specifically. So after some discussion, we decided to go with a mail route. So we did a mail out for every home or every address, I guess, in high level. We put a survey together and we sent it to there. We had some security added to it so that we could track the pages themselves so they could come back. A lot of this came from the survey that we did last time that had there was a very high response rate, but there was also a very high response rate from people that some of them weren't even in the area, some of them may not have even been in the country. So this was our way of just ensuring that we could get the information that we needed from specifically people who lived in town here. So we accessed the town's GIS system and we addressed every residential address in high level. And then we also did some work on individual addressing for properties that had multiple dwellings in them. And so then using that information, we created we were able to combine our questions in our database. Like I mentioned, we had this unique address attached to every single one that we mailed out. And I believe we mailed out 1,404 envelopes containing uniquely coded questionnaires. And we did that on October 8th. And with the goal of having everything back kind of by the 21st of October. So we gave them a couple weeks to receive the questionnaire, kind of read it over. We provided, on our website, we provided a copy of the bylaws that stood after first reading. And we tried to engage them in a social media campaign to just kind of let people know that these surveys were coming out and that we would try to get to everybody. Unfortunately, we ran into some issues with postage, so the post office returned 300 envelopes to us. At that point, we really tried to reach out again through social media and try to ensure that anybody who wanted to would be able to get one of these envelopes. We did have a number, I'm not sure exactly how many people contacted us so that they could get one. And we just asked, in order to ensure everybody's safety, if they weren't comfortable coming in, they could either scan and email the questionnaire back to us, or they could take a photo and send it to us by email again, or they could drop it off at the office if they so chose. We also had some delivery delays, which we were not anticipating. So there are a number of people in the community that didn't receive the survey, or in some cases, we heard that they received it after the deadline, in which case that would give it it took about 3 weeks at least for the post office to deliver it to their homes. That certainly wasn't our intent. We were kind of really hoping that those would all be out in that first week after Thanksgiving, and it would give people about a week and a half to respond if they chose to do so. Let's see here. So, in terms of business engagement, we went around about it a different way. We went through the business license database with the hope of being able to use all of the emails collected from local businesses and email them directly. So we emailed them a slightly modified version of the same questionnaire, same questions, and a copy of the bylaws that stood after first reading. And we ran into an issue there because we very quickly realized that we were missing about 80% of the email contacts we needed for local businesses. So there's been some upgrading and some changes this year in how that information is collected. And again, that was an unforeseen circumstance that we had to kind of deal with. As a result, we just took the licenses and every business that we had a phone number for, we tried to contact them directly to get an email address, collected as many of those emails as we could, and then sent out the information. Again, reaching out on social media. If they were interested, they could contact us, and we would try to help them out in any way we could to make sure that they had a chance to respond.
And did you have people respond?
Yeah, so the results that we received, we collected 192 responses in all. And that was 151 resident responses and 40 business responses. And so the questionnaire itself was just 3 questions. And each questionnaire had either a yes or no answer and then a space for them to write in if they had any comments or concerns, or if they just wanted to add to what was being addressed. So the first one kind of was the most important one we felt in terms of actually gauging support or non-support for the bylaw itself. And it's simply, do you support a face covering bylaw? And I'll go through the residential answers first. I split them between residential and business, knowing that some of the residential responses most likely came from people who also own businesses, so in some cases they may have responded twice. We weren't tracking them by name, only by address, so we weren't able to make that distinction, right? So one would come in as a business address, one came in as a home address, and we just took them as residential responses. The idea also was that in some cases they might have different responses as a resident versus as a business, so they might have different concerns, and that might change some of their answers too. So the first one, the community response was split 54% in favor and 46% against, 82 to 69. This kind of reflects the split in the community that we've been monitoring for probably the last 6 months. There's a lot of people on both sides of the discussion, and I think that was kind of captured with this question. The second one and the third one are both based on some pieces that we were looking at adding to the bylaw that would kind of just change when, or if circumstances change, then it would allow the bylaw to come into effect, or create an exemption. Now, the second question is actually about an exemption period for local businesses, which would allow them to set aside a set amount of time every day for people to shop without masks on. And the response to that from the residents were only 29% in favor of that and 71% against. So we had 43 responses for and 106 against that specific, adding that exemption. The third question is around a trigger number, which would have activated the bylaw in case, if the number of active cases reached a certain level, then the bylaw would become active. And again, there was a strong negative response from the community on something like that. So the numbers were 34% in favor of having a trigger like that and 66% against. And the numbers were 51 to 98 for that. So that was kind of the gist of the residential response to the questionnaire from the responses that we gathered. In terms of business, it was a very different story in terms of responses. So the first question that they had, do you support a face covering bylaw? The responses we got from the 40 businesses that responded, we ended up with only 20% in favor of a bylaw, and 80% were not supportive of a face coverings bylaw. The second question of would you support an exemption period for local businesses to allow unmasked shoppers at specific times of each day? Again, it was a very low response in support from the businesses. It was 21% in favor and 79% against, and that was 8 total answers in favor and 30 against. And in terms of the third question, the trigger number question, it was another similar answer. This time we had 27% in favor and 73% against, and it equated to 10 for and 27 against. Some of the numbers are a little bit different, and you'd expect them to kind of all be the same with these kind of responses, but we did have some people who filled out one question but didn't fill out another. There were several people who felt that the second and third questions actually kind of depended on whether or not you supported a bylaw, so they felt they couldn't answer the second one because they didn't support a bylaw, so they didn't want to support exemption, and they didn't want to support a trigger number because they felt that they didn't need to answer those. So that's where kind of the number of discrepancies happen in the number of answers. And that, in terms of responses, now we did collect all of the comments and everything, and we put them together in a package for you guys. We haven't made those public because some of them it's easy to identify where the responses came from, and we wanted to preserve the anonymity and the privacy of the people that responded. We were very grateful that they took the time to respond, and with the level of energy in this conversation in the community, we felt it was important that we didn't kind of expose them to anything on either side. So the numbers remain in the agenda package, and you guys will be able to take a look at the written responses yourselves.
So for clarity's sake, of those 385 surveys that were returned through the postal system, did we get any response from those 385 people? Do you know? Charles was kind of taking care of that, so because he had access to all the addressing and stuff, and maybe he could help us with that.
A small number where they reached out to us and let us know that they hadn't received their mailer. We then either emailed it or made it available to those who came directly into the office to request it. But that's the extent. I don't have an exact number for you off the top of my head.
And the businesses that we did not have addresses for had ample time to respond once we had the correct addressing?
I believe so, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, so that contact took place the week after Thanksgiving. So we tried to give them about a week plus. So there was a day or two of kind of leeway there where we had closed the survey, but we were still, as they came in, we felt it was more important that the residents be heard than to stick to kind of a hard deadline that we had set for collecting the information. And yeah, as far as we've been able to tell, I mean, the people that specifically asked, as far as we can tell, at least some of them asked for it and then sent us back a response. So.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Okay, CAO.
Madam Mayor, based on that, administration will be slightly amending its recommendation when we get to the introduction of second reading, but I'll address that at that time. So
Okay.
that's all administration has in the bylaw.
Okay, is there anyone here present to speak to the proposed bylaw? And
Yeah, I didn't get a survey. My name is Jason Cornish.
do you want to come forward? Have a seat if there's a chair there.
No.
Charles is getting you unwelcome, Jason. Okay, to state your name for the municipal secretary.
Jason, Jason. Here comes the hard part. Pornich, P-O-H-R-A-N-Y-C-H-N-Y. It's 10309, 104 Ave.
Okay. Thank you. Welcome again.
Thank you. I didn't get the questionnaire, the survey, so I thought I'd come tonight hoping to hear what the other side had to say, but not a fan of masks, but I'm in favor of the bylaw because I wear it for the other folks that really can't afford to be caught up in the disease. But the way it was listed was, I forget the three, but in favor of the bylaw, not in favor of the segmented time.
The
And also-
time. there was a 2-hour time frame where people could shop without masks.
Right, and I thought that was a downloading onto the vendors who have really taken point in this from the beginning. I have the luxury of working for an employer where we get to close our building. It's a provincial building. Citizens have put up with the public building being shut down, and as an employee, I'm well protected. Going to the pharmacy, I've donned the mask since it was asked of me. I had the pleasure of shopping in Lacrete recently. I was the only mask wearer. It was a palpable difference from being in town here. If they had a bylaw that said no masks allowed, I'm sure I would have taken it off because it was that much of a difference. In town, I'm looking for the leadership to say it's time to come down on one side or the other, but I've gone to the post office once without it. I noticed if there was a bylaw, I would have ran back to the building and got my mask. We see visitors, I'm a regional service provider. I see visitors from all over the region that are wearing their mask. They have no interest in taking anything back. In fact, they're over wearing it as far as what the national expectation would be. That type of effort shouldn't be sort of left to stand on its own. I think of cashiers that are, again, not afforded what I get from a government employer. They have a tougher job. They don't get right of refusal. If we don't have the leadership at this point in the pandemic, which could be the twindemic, I think we're leaving our first responders in the lurch. They're protecting themselves very well, but I think there's a segment of the population that requires just a little bit of guidance or leadership to say it's now ready for the next level. Tonight at 5, the news said Calgary and Edmonton are going to another level of response. We're just at the next phase of the new phase. So I'm just here to say that if the bylaw existed, I would have more comfort in saying I've got to do my part. And I don't question if others, there's going to be a segment that will not do it no matter what the bylaw says. Penalties or enforcement. But Dr. Fauci for the US recently said you make the stance and then you see if you need enforcement. I'm sure there's a bunch that hate masks, same as me, that will wear them because it's where the community stands. But unless leadership says where we stand, there's still going to be a bunch of folks that don't know whether they're coming or going, which is where we were at the start. So that was it.
Is there any questions for clarity? Thank you, Jason.
Thanks for your.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak for the bylaw? Seeing none, I will ask for those that are opposed to the bylaw. Presentations by anybody opposed to the bylaw? Seeing none. General questions from council. Do you have any questions of the CAO?
Madam Mayor,
Yes?
I do have some questions, but perhaps it will be answered as we move further along this process.
Yes.
Okay, I can hold on.
Just
then.
questions for clarity?
I'm fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I would like to move to close this public hearing at 7:24. Moving on to approval of minutes from the organizational meeting. Is there someone make a motion?
I'll make.
Councillor Jessamine, all in favor? Carried. Minutes from the regular council meeting of October 13th. Any errors? Could I have a motion, please?
I'll make the motion.
Councillor Anderson, all in favor? Carried. I have a very short report tonight. I'd like to say that on October 14th, I think it was, October 14th, we had the banner of Remembrance, and I would like to send out a huge thank you to administration. You did a fantastic job of getting, organizing all the families, getting the banners, and having a presentation. It was done very professionally in here in the town hall, and nothing but comments, good comments from the families and from the people that see them downtown. So thank you to our operations staff for putting them up, and they really do add something to our town, so thank you. The rest of my report will be done in camera. So could I have someone move my report, please? Councillor Morgan, all in favor? Carried. So committee reports, Deputy Mayor.
Nothing to report.
Thank you. Councillor Anderson.
Attended the high-level library board meeting. I believe it was on the 25th? 21st. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councillor Forrest.
No meetings.
Thank you. Councillor Jessamine.
On October the 14th, I attended the High Level Policing Society meeting, and that's it for me.
How is your pace going?
Awesome. The Child Advocacy Center is going into its final stages for reconstructing and additions to the building. We hope by the end of this week we will be all set and ready to start taking in. We have our steering committee that we're going to be having our first meeting here next month coming up. So yeah, things are starting to come together. We're pretty excited, and all the local partners that we've invited are excited as well. So
Good.
it's getting closer.
Good. Who's your steering committee?
There's a number of people. Yeah, the North Peace Tribal Council, the Health Authority, the RCMP, PACE is a part of that.
Thank you. Any questions for Councillor Jessamine? No? Okay. Councillor Morgan.
October 21st, I attended the same high-level library board meeting. We did pass our 2021 budget at that meeting, and I would ask Ms. Phillips if she doesn't get it in a timely manner to let us know, so we can make sure that she gets a copy of it for budgeting.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Welke.
I also attended the Banner of Remembrance open house on October 14th. It was a fantastic event, well received by everyone. On October 20th, I had my Community Education Committee orientation. We didn't have quorum for a board meeting, but I began with one other board member and one of the facilitators discussion on the needs of Alberta adult education, further education in Alberta, and directions that that we'd like to move, and looking at deficiencies in post-secondary and adult learning that we can identify. So that's a process that started, and pretty new to all of that, so just kind of getting my feet wet. That night on the 20th, we also had an FASD board meeting. The grand opening of the building is confirmed now for November 25th in the afternoon. Invitations will be going out, and we're pretty close to having a name, but nothing to reveal at the moment. And that's all for me.
Any questions of Councillor Welke? None? Thank you. Could I have someone move council committee reports, please? Councillor Forrest, all in favor? Carried. Administrative reports, actions from council meetings. Is there any questions of council? Deputy Mayor moves for information. All in favor? Carried. So, moving on to our old business, which is second reading of the proposed face coverings. Does someone want to make a motion? Okay, Councillor Forrest moves for second reading. I will entertain discussions, starting with Councillor Jessamine.
I do appreciate the town member coming before us, and I appreciate his comments. I think it's very important. Following the news a lot in the last number of weeks and months, and with numbers going up all across our country and other countries, I am strongly in favor of having a bylaw in place and for the protection of the people that we have working. You know, we all go into our local businesses, and the people that are there, putting their families at risk and themselves at risk. I do think it's important. And for our local economy here, we're very fortunate up here. We seem to be somewhat secluded in our area. We're doing very well locally with our local mills and local businesses, but that could be challenged in a fairly substantial way. And I think it's important that we're aware of that and put this in place to protect any of those businesses that may be at risk. Yeah, I'm in favor.
Okay. Councillor Anderson?
I don't really have a whole lot of comment on it. Listening to the questionnaires or reviewing the questions that were out there and the way the businesses voted on it and what is happening in them, I would have to say at this point in time, I'm probably not in favor.
Councillor Welke?
I do have some concerns. Generally, I'm in favor. I know with the fatigue that we're all experiencing from COVID in general and being a little desensitized, I think, to the matter as well, there is a bit of a perception out there that it's not as serious as it is, but yet we see these numbers growing in other jurisdictions and, you know, other areas of the province, across the country, across the world. I personally would not be opposed to the bylaw. I'd like to see a few amendments in there, which maybe we'll talk about in terms of the triggers and the temporary suspension. I don't think are logical, especially considering the feedback we received from the public, residents and businesses. I guess whether or not it's absolutely necessary at this time, it's absolutely nothing that should be killed or defeated. I think we really have to watch closely. I understand a lot of people's need to we should, you know, take leadership and make a decision, but it's difficult. And one question I had, Madam Mayor, too, is I think we seem to not have the information on how significant this is within our own community. And if I could ask you, to comment on that, what type of data do we get, or information or intelligence do we get on the extent of COVID cases within our jurisdiction?
So, to comment on that, I guess we're not getting any intelligence anymore. Our own searching of knowledge in our community has come from, I work in the school systems. Right now, we have not seen any students, with the exception of one at the very beginning that had COVID. So we have not had any classes shut down because of COVID. And in talking with Alberta Health Services, we have not seen an increase in hospitalization of people in our community with COVID. So I guess that's about as close as I can get to answering that question. CAO, do you have any further comments?
No, nothing to add, Madam Mayor. We do have regular contact with AHS talking about hospitalizations. There was a concern that there was a drop in testing but because we can only speculate, but as we're not seeing an increase in hospitalizations due to COVID, it may just be the testing dropped off due to people not being sick. So it's right at the moment, it appears as though the numbers we're getting off the Alberta website are accurate.
Taking into consideration that people aren't being as tested as much, asymptomatic people aren't being tested. So, that's all we can say, like, we aren't getting anything from the government, just off of their website. And it's the whole region, it's no high-level stats.
So, yeah, that being said, I am in favor of a bylaw of this nature. I do like the idea of a trigger so that the actual legislation can float at the need, but it has to be tailored, I think, properly for our region. So, or not our region, but for our town and for our jurisdiction. So I would like to see something more along the lines of a trigger that's based on an outbreak within our town. Maybe there's still a number regionally. I think 100 is too high. If it were, around, say, the 25 mark, but then also something that had to do with an outbreak within our town itself. I feel we are doing well. A lot of businesses are doing what they need to do to protect themselves. And I don't think we're seeing the transmission or an out of control situation within our town, even though we are a regional hub and we get a lot of visitors from everywhere. I think generally the town is doing well, so it's still a difficult decision, but I would be in favor of this bylaw with a accurate trigger system. And I'm not in favor of the temporary suspension hours within a working day.
So maybe Councillor Forrest would entertain an amendment to his second reading.
I don't think I will, no.
You want to go with 100 people? And so the mask bylaw would not be triggered unless there were 100 people.
Okay, no, I don't want, I'm sorry. I misunderstood that.
So he's
Yes,
suggesting 25 people
Yeah, okay.
or...
Yeah, I'll go along with that, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
But didn't the results, people are against that ruling, or am I wrong here?
People are against the trigger.
Yeah, quite heavily.
People are against the 2-hour
Yeah,
unmasked bylaw.
and so am I. I think it would just throw so much confusion into it if, the thing is we as leaders need to stay consistent. People struggle through this. From our federal government to our provincial governments across this country, nobody has been consistent. People need to be consistent, and this would cause inconsistency. If today we have it on and tomorrow we potentially could come off. People coming and going into a region, how would they know that? And those numbers. So I'm against having a trigger in that it's just a straight across bylaw.
Amen.
Yes.
With Councillor Jessamyn's comments, then I agree. The trigger makes it difficult, especially where, if it's floating around the trigger point and it's coming off and on, how do you know, even as residents? So yes, I'd say that would make it difficult. Is there a mechanism though to evaluate this though, that it could be implemented and we could determine a time, or there should be a time that we can determine when it doesn't have to be implemented, or does that require a whole set of resolutions and motions as well to stop it? What if this is a prolonged event where there is need under certain times to have stricter measures in place, and then
So there could be a mechanism in place where this is just hypothetically, we could pass second reading. We could then table the motion, and if there were an outbreak per se, then we could do third reading.
And does that require,
Well,
Oh.
we could say no triggers at all, like, I get it, like, we can't be firm on whether there's an outbreak in our community if nobody tells us. And the only way we're knowing is our own contact with Alberta Health Services, us calling Alberta Health Services and saying, is there an increase in hospitalization? Calling the school division and saying, are there cases of COVID in the school? We don't have any way of knowing. Grand Prairie triggered their bylaw today, their mask bylaws now. They had it set at 100 people. They now have 100 people, the bylaw's in place.
oh, so theirs was enacted and its trigger got hit?
Yes.
Okay.
And when the trigger hits, the bylaw's enacted, and I haven't read too much into it of when the bylaw will come off or.
Madam Mayor, just to clarify that, so according to their bylaw, it comes off when their region hits open status again.
Open status, which means 28 days with nobody sick.
Or it drops under a certain number.
Yeah. But they are their own city, so they get that information.
Right.
We don't get that information.
And how would visitors to that region know whether or not a bylaw is enforced or not?
I guess they would read it just like everyone else. Like, cities and towns have bylaws. Not everybody knows everybody's bylaws. When you're going to visit a place, you would acquaint yourself with their bylaws, just like if you were going to visit a country, you would acquaint yourself with their laws.
True, and I guess that then the enforcement aspect of, if you're notified and you comply, you're not going to get a fine if you didn't read, that sort of
No,
thing.
you can't say, well, I didn't know I'm from high level.
Mhm.
You should know. That's your responsibility as a responsible citizen.
So, I'm kind of in favor. I guess I'm always looking for that medium where we can be flexible with what we've implemented, but it's very, very difficult. So I'd like to hear maybe, a couple of the other councilors' comments as well. So,
Alice,
I think I'm gonna change that. I'd like to have it with no restrictions whatsoever if I can.
it's your
Yeah, I wanna
motion.
get the bylaw and get it done. No
Okay,
restrictions whatsoever.
so you're saying
No restrictions.
no trigger
No trigger at all, a bylaw, that's
and
it.
no unmasking.
No.
That's his amendment.
So that would be the removal of clause 3 and clause 6 from the bylaw
Yes.
as presented.
So,
another
So
question.
do we have to vote on that amendment now? No.
So that's his motion. on
that's
it.
my motion.
Okay. And do you have anything else to say?
Well, as you know, I'm 100% for it, that's for sure. And we need it. So
All right. What,
I was gonna have another comment.
could we hear from
Yeah,
Councillor Morgan first?
I think we're trying to close the fence on the bull after it's already got in the field.
Okay,
We're back in March and April when we had high numbers of cases. Absolutely, I would have supported it, but we've seen a steady decline in the region, and there seems to be very little support from the businesses for putting it in. So why are we trying to put a mask bylaw in now?
can I hear from Councillor, our deputy mayor?
I'm not in favor of the bylaw. The only redeeming feature, if we were to pass it, is if there was a trigger number. I don't believe that we can know what the number is within our community. We would have to go based on what Alberta Health provides for the region. And therefore, within the region, I think 100 is probably realistic. It is a huge region. It's the size of New Brunswick, as we all know and get told from time to time. I commend administration for putting together the survey. I'm not sure how clear question 3 was in terms of the triggers. I don't think people understood that. I had forwarded one email from a resident to administration who hadn't received one. I've talked to a number of other people that either didn't receive one in the mail or a couple that received it late on Friday. I suggested that they contacted the town, but they said, where's the anonymity and providing the results? And they were just nervous about having to reach out and contact the town directly. They wanted to respond, but they wanted to be anonymous in doing that. There's a number of businesses that are exempt from business licenses, so there was likely some businesses that were missed, just if that was the source that was used for contacting businesses. As I've said before, the enforceability, we have 2 bylaw officers. Administration has already indicated that if this was to be passed, that the bylaw officers would continue to work together just because of the emotional nature of what other municipalities have seen in trying to enforce bylaws that have sometimes unfortunately turned violent. I just don't think we have the ability to enforce it. If we did have just carte blanche that it is a mask bylaw, are we coming back when there's been no cases in the region for a month to suspend or repeal the bylaw, then only to have another meeting to pass a further bylaw or to reenact the bylaw? If there's no triggering mechanism, I'm just not sure how we can even handle this. I agree with Councillor Morgan. This is not a municipal responsibility. This healthcare is a provincial one, and if the province wants to take the lead and enforce this for the entire province, that's certainly within their mandate to do that. I'm concerned about protecting everyone in the community as well. Masks were out, hand sanitizer were out. I grabbed one on the way in, and no one else had one on other than someone in the gallery and one member of administration. So practice what we preach. None of us have been wearing masks. Jan wears one at work. I'm just not in favor of this. I just think we're stepping into something that's not within our municipal purview.
Okay. Councillor Jessamine.
Okay, thank you. Yes, the province, I feel, has fallen down here, and I don't think they've taken a strong enough lead to lead us forward. So the next stop is we have that ability and right to keep our people safe. One thing we are sure of, the numbers are going up all across the world. This isn't going away. Every expert that is out there that are in their field, I'm not an expert, but I'm listening to the experts that are in the field recommending that we do these types of measures. And yeah, it's not going away. It's going to be here for some time. So it has the potential to have a huge negative impact in our areas.
Councillor Welke, you had something to say?
Yeah, I've heard everything now, and I agree. I do disagree a little bit, Councillor Morgan, with just the comment that it's back in March, it maybe yes, but now, like, this thing can change. So I would also disagree a little bit with Councillor Forrest. We need, if we're going to do this, there needs to be some kind of trigger. I believe that, because it can't be something that's just enacted and then takes, a lot of effort to remove. I've now, hearing the comments, thought, we probably can manage a trigger with communication to the public. I don't think it'll be flip-flopping around, if it gets triggered, then it stays into effect until, I guess you also have to have that time of coming off. So whether that's just dropping below the number, or if you're considered like no new cases, I'm really hung up on this trigger thing, because I think it has to be a little more fine-tuned. So I would, I'm in favor of moving this forward. I liked the idea of tabling the 3rd, if we could respond quickly if needed. If there was an outbreak, a huge outbreak, and we wanted to implement this, can we respond quickly with 3rd reading? Does it require a special meeting? Or is it just similar to any other full meeting of council?
We can call a special meeting whenever we deem necessary, and with 24-hour notice to the public.
Okay. Councillor Forrest, do you
Yes,
still...
would you like to speak to Councillor
Sorry,
Forrest?
Madam Mayor, may I address Councillor Forrest,
Yes.
please? Councillor Forrest, do you have any newer thoughts on that trigger? Is it absolutely imperative for yourself to
I
feel
can't
that?
see where, really where it's necessary to have a trigger. Really. What good's it gonna do? I don't see any good to it.
So let me intervene for just a second and then I'll get to you. So far, I think the town has done a very good job of protecting themselves. We've had 3 COVID cases that we know of. Businesses are doing their part, we're doing our part. Yes, we do mask. I mask when I go in the stores and the post office and other places where I don't know if I'm going to be in contact. I think the town has done an excellent job in shutting down all those COVID spreaders, like all the big activities that we would have enclosed. So at this point, it doesn't, it doesn't look like we need a total bylaw on mask, like everybody mask up now. What frightens me is what he's talking about, like the second wave is coming and we've seen it come to Grand Prairie now. Grand Prairie wasn't involved in the first wave. How many of our people go to Grand Prairie, bring it back home? So but we have to have some sort of mechanism if we were to do it. Like, I don't know what the number is. Grand Prairie picked 100, they have 200,000 people. We have in our region 30,000 people. Do we pick 10? I don't know what the magic number is. But they consider a COVID outbreak in the schools 2 people.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that would be up to council to decide something like that. If you went to second reading, council could have further discussion at another time, and when we start to hear the cases come into our community. Yes. Oh, sorry,
Madam Mayor, sorry, before you call the vote, I've just got a point of order, but you can
Okay.
proceed with the council discussion.
Okay.
Just 2 more comments. In the last 6 months, I've been in 3 communities, probably our biggest communities in Alberta. I've been in Edmonton, I've been in Calgary, and I've been in Banff. I've seen no problems, and I talked to a peace officer when I was in Banff. When they implemented, this is one of Canada's busiest parks in Canada, they had very little problems with it. He thought it was working very well, and when I was there, 99.9% of the people were wearing masks. Didn't see any problem. I was in Calgary 2 weeks ago, the same thing. Everywhere I went, and if I got out of the vehicle, I was jumping back into it to get my mask because it was just a normal way of life in those bigger centers. Secondly, I have kids in school. I don't know how many else here do, and I just see the struggle that they've been through for the last few years with whether it's fire or COVID. COVID was the last big one with school being shut down and doing it online. Their education is not the same, and they definitely struggle, as well as a lot of other kids in the system when the schools are shut down. We've already had a few across the province that have had to shut down, and definitely don't want to go there again with my kids. And I know, I've heard from other families in the community that it's a struggle and a big hardship for them when the schools shut down and they have to be home with their kids to help them get through it. So that's quite a concern for me as well.
Madam Mayor, my administrative suggestion that we sever the issues in clause 3 and clause 6 from your discussion. In my opinion, if you were to consider Councillor Forrest's motion the way it stands, the defeat of that to remove 3 and 6 would defeat the bylaw, because it would be defeating the second reading. I would suggest either as a friendly amendment, you consider each of those clauses, or request Councillor Forrest delay his motion on second reading until council has a chance to decide individually on clause 3 and clause 6.
I could hardly hear what he said.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so he would like you to delay your motion on clause 3 and 6, because if we remove them as you have it stated now,
Mm-hmm.
it would defeat second reading.
Okay, no, we don't want that.
So do
Yep.
you want to delay your second
Yeah,
reading
we'll delay it.
to the next council meeting, till we have a chance to look at those clauses?
Or council could discuss each of those clauses separately now and decide whether or not they want to leave them in the bylaw.
Okay, so delay your,
Yes.
okay,
Sorry.
what, yes.
Because Councillor Forrest's motion is to amend the bylaw as presented that passed first reading, do we not have to vote on the amendments as to whether or not council wants to see the amendments made before there would be?
That's
what he
that's
said.
another way of wording what I'm suggesting, Deputy Mayor.
That's what he said.
Rather than voting on the motion of second reading, vote on the amendments first.
So, the First Amendment is number 3. Can you read it for us?
So currently, clause number 3 says sections 4 to 8 of this bylaw activate when the total case count exceeds 100 cases in Area 1 of the North Zone of Alberta Health Services. Sorry, just an aside, Madam Mayor, Area 1 of the North Zone is that area contained within Mackenzie County and the Battle Prairie Lady Settlement. B, relaunch status changed by either municipality to enhanced status as per the Government of Alberta. So if any one municipality or area within there hits the enhanced area, that would also trigger the bylaw. The bylaw would deactivate when the launch status is open for Area 1 of the North Zone for a period of not less than 14 days. So that's what's, if you look at the map currently, for example, the county of Northern Sunrise County now has 0 cases. So they would be considered open again. The question, Madam Mayor, sorry not to intervene.
Yeah, well, you convoluted, can you?
Does council want 100 as the trigger, essentially?
Yes. In the areas north of Paddle Prairie and,
That would include Paddle Prairie and everything contained within the boundaries of Mackenzie County, including the towns, the reserves.
so do you want to repeal that section of the bylaw? Basically, the 100, total cases of 100 in the North Zone, Area 1.
His motion was to delete section 3 in its entirety.
Yeah.
And section 3 and section 6.
So
Section
now I'm
6
entertaining discussion. Yes,
I'm in favor of cutting that out.
okay. Not replacing it with anything.
No, gone.
Okay, Councillor Lockie?
I'm not in favor of cutting it out, and I am in favor of discussion on replacing it with something else.
Mike?
I would not cut it out.
It's the only redeeming feature of the bylaw as it stands, and only if it stays at 100 in my case.
That's not fair to say it's the only redeeming thing of the bylaw.
In my opinion.
Okay,
Which I'm
thank you.
entitled to.
Out?
No, I think it has to remain, and I also think the 100 has to remain as well. So as is, the way it's stated.
Okay, we're going to call the question. What is the question?
Actually, we also included section 6 in that, which was the 2-hour limit.
Oh, I thought we had to vote on each of those clauses separately.
If he's willing to separate his 2 amendments. Sorry, that motion was to remove 3 and 6.
Do you want to separate those two? The clause 3 and clause 6? Clause 6 is to,
I don't think so.
To deal with them separately?
he wants to deal with them separately.
Separately?
Well, can we do it together? You know, what's the difference really?
Well, because
That's
clause
your
6 is
I know.
the 2-hour,
I know, 2 hours. So I'll go separate then.
Okay, so, Madam Mayor, our understanding of the situation is that Councillor Forrest has made a motion to remove section 3 from the bylaw. That is what you are currently considering.
Yep.
okay, those in favor of removing section 3? Two? Those opposed to removing section 3? Okay, so it remains in there. Section 6, which is the 2-hour
Exemption.
exemption for businesses. Those in, is there any discussion on that? Where businesses can exempt people, allow them to unmask, sort of like the 2-hour senior shopping that we had in the beginning. No discussion? Okay, call the question then. Those in favor of removing section 6? Those opposed? So section 6 is removed. Now back to the original motion. Is there any more discussion? For, against, second reading? I'll call the motion. All in favor of second reading? 1, 2, 3, 4. Carried. Do we want a tabling motion, or do we want to move on to? Yes.
I would like to make a motion to table third reading.
Any discussion? All in favor of tabling third reading? Carried.
I'm so glad Charles is recording all this.
Madam Mayor, as there was no specific date, that will be brought back to every regular meeting unless you call a special.
Okay. So for the public, in case you did not hear that, third reading will be brought back to every council meeting until it's either passed or defeated or tabled. All right, moving. You always say things and then I talk to myself. Moving on to new business, the 13-1 now, or 13.1, the amendment to the land use bylaw 944-13 CAO.
Madam Mayor, I'll defer the introduction of this to Ms. Gow.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll walk through some background on this RFD and then leave it up to your discussion and decision. So in September 2018, one of the properties on 103rd Street, so owned by Alberta Social Housing Corporation, was damaged in a fire. And in the spring of this year, they hired a Green Space Alliance to look at a rezoning application for 5 properties on that stretch. So there is a map in the agenda package on page 73 that shows you the 5 properties along 103rd Street. So from 10107 up to 10115. And Alberta Seniors in Housing estimated that there was 26 households with low income that are currently on the wait list in high level. So they have submitted a rezoning application to rezone those properties from low residential, which is R1, to high residential, which is R3. So there's been quite a bit of activity on this rezoning project, as it were, over the summer. So there were a few meetings had that the CAO and I participated in online, discussing a potential rezoning and some design concepts and what's permitted, discretionary, etc. So we did provide some support to Green Space Alliance. They were up here in the summer. So we did a notification to adjacent landowners within a 100-metre buffer of the site. So we sent out letters about the design sessions and then the open house that was held here at the town hall. We were also asked to put together a key stakeholders list for local groups in town to participate in those sessions, to provide feedback on the potential rezoning and any of the design concepts as well. And adjacent landowners were also invited to those sessions as well. We provided advertisement for the open house, and it was held July 30th or 31st, 30th I think, here at the town hall. So Green Space Alliance did come up for a couple of days on the 29th of July, and they did tour the community, and they had a look at some of the other Alberta social housing properties around town, just to look at design elements and that type of thing. And then during the design sessions, there were two held on July 30th, both in the afternoon rather, and there was a combination of feedback that was received, both positive and negative. So there was some feedback received that people acknowledged it would increase foot traffic in that area, spending downtown, that type of thing. And there were other residents that believed it would negatively affect their property value if a high density development went up in that area. There were also other concerns about on-street parking and traffic flows in that area, so close to Main Street. Administration also met with Green Space Alliance in the morning, and they provided, as council did see as well, and the public, the 6 design concepts, and kind of had a bit of discussion on some operational concerns or whatever, and also fire response to some of those buildings and manoeuvring around. Some other feedback that was received as well during the design session was a consideration for a different zoning, so looking at medium density, which is R2 instead of R3. So I believe one of the groups actually came to a consensus on R2. So that was when Green Space Alliance were in the community. Then at the end of August, August 31st, you may remember we had a Zoom meeting with Green Space Alliance, with most of the council members were on there, and the CAO was as well. And that was just really getting any last input from council, going back over the designs and getting an opportunity for council to ask any more questions of the Green Space Alliance. And then this month, so October 8th, we received the land use bylaw amendment application from Alberta Seniors and Housing, requesting an amendment to council for a change to R3. And they have provided a plan of how they'd like to go forwards after today. So, you know, after putting a request in for first reading to amend the bylaw and requesting a public hearing date be set, so long as that happens, they've put a plan forward where they would like to come back up to high level. So Green Space Alliance would come up sometime next week, I believe towards the end of the week, to do a second open house, so additional public engagement to get any additional input, last minute feedback. Alberta Seniors and Housing would also like to provide a presentation to council at the next committee of the whole meeting, which is November 16th. The public hearing they're requesting would be November 23rd, and then seeking second reading that night, and then third reading either that night or the first meeting in December. One thing I have just highlighted in the RFD, which is important, is that Alberta Seniors and Housing have not made a decision on the type of development they would like to see on that site. So this is a decision to rezone from R1 to R3, and then so long as the amendment does get past third reading, they would then work on the type of development that they would like to see on that site. But as it stands, no decision has been made. You all have seen the concepts that were brought to the open house and to the town for discussion, but a decision hasn't been made yet. So I just put in a small table of all the uses that are permitted and discretionary in R3 as it stands right now. So, yeah.
So my concern with, and I'm okay with it going to first reading because we can have the public come here and express their disinterest in it. They're running a pretty tight schedule here for us. You know, they want us to pass all these readings for what they want, but it's what the public wants. It's not really what they want to put up there, it's what we want to have here that they need to understand. And I mean, there was a lot of people that were against what they were proposing.
Yeah.
So I'm not against calling for a public meeting and making darn sure that the public knows and everybody affected knows it. And a week, we have found out, is not enough time to let people in high level know in case we don't have their address or they don't get their letter in the mail or whatever. If we are going to have this meeting, I would like to see us go door to door to all those people and put an envelope in their door or hand them something, because there were people that didn't even know this was going to affect them.
Yeah, absolutely. So in discussion with Alberta Seniors and Housing, we did recommend that a concept was submitted with the application, or even if it wasn't a final decision, right, just to submit something, or to look at an alternative zoning, such as direct control. But neither of those things were something that they wanted to pursue. So the request, you know, I've put it in as a recommendation to do first reading and public hearing, because it does then give us the opportunity to get, you know, the feedback, and then we see where we'll arrive after that day.
So we rezone it and they'll put in what they want, because this is the government of Alberta.
Well, your permitted uses, you know, a multi-unit dwelling of up to 24 units is permitted.
So,
Right.
yeah. So, I mean, they need to entertain direct control if that's what we decide. I'm just like a bit annoyed that they would give us this timeline when it is the people that, like, the council is speaking for the people, and I have talked to a lot of those people that didn't even know that this could go up in their neighborhood. And yes, it's an excellent place for lots of people, but I've also found out they don't even have the right information, because I'm on Boreal Housing. We only have 13 people on a waiting list, not 26, so I don't know where they got their information from.
Okay.
So, I mean, like, all of this needs to be explored. Like, do we have a big dwelling there with 20, you know, 20 places available?
Do we want to pick a different date for the public hearing?
Well, a public hearing is usually 2 weeks for sure after we set it. And I don't care what their timelines are, I'm sorry. The rest of council can speak, but I'm a bit annoyed with them. What do you guys think?
Sorry, I thought the
Yeah.
feet, oh, sorry, you pointed.
Yeah,
Okay, so I understand you're annoyed with it, but I would like to know when we would set public meeting, if we have a date in mind. Give us a date.
well,
For
that's what
public
I'm saying, like, it's usually 2
Council,
weeks.
give us a date for public
Yeah.
hearing.
You better.
I agree, there's a huge need for social housing here. In the short term, we would be evicting 4 families that currently have a place to stay. I think the overwhelming response that they got from the open house that they had is that people didn't want to see this type of development there. I think the consensus of council when they presented was the council really wasn't thrilled with any of the proposals. I'm prepared to move this for information. That way, if they want to come back with a more detailed plan, they can. Other than that, they need to rebuild that house and get another family in there. There's lots of other areas in this community where they could build what they're looking to build and not eliminate 5 residences to boot.
I'm of the same opinion as Deputy Mayor. I think it's a very foolish idea to take down 5, real nice dwellings and stick up something else. And these homes are still in good shape. They're all excellent shape. And it's going to cost them how much money to take them down? It does make a bit of sense.
I don't know where it came from Alberta Seniors. It didn't come from the town or from Boreal Housing or...
No, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever, I don't think.
Did you have something? I thought you were...
No. Well, I'll wait my turn.
This is your turn.
This is your turn.
I agree. I also, it sounds like I'm on the fence a lot here today, but, first reading's fine, but, to what extent were alternate sites explored?
As far as I know, to 0.
They want to deal with these walls.
It was an
They-
opportunity
and
because of
Madam-
fire damage property.
Sorry?
That's my understanding, was because the one property was fire damaged, it was, do we replace it with another single family dwelling, or is there a bigger opportunity here? And that was where this idea came from, is my understanding. And they believe that it's more in the long term, more economically viable for them, and then also to address this waiting list that they have.
So do they have somewhere for these 5 families to go?
I have no idea.
It's probably up to Boreal Housing.
Yeah, exactly, and there's no places to rent in Highland.
So it's because it's their properties, they would want to work with that. Anything else would be a matter of either purchasing or negotiating something. Okay.
Well, were you at the presentation, Jen?
Yes.
Do you remember why they wanted to put it where it's located? There was a whole array of reasons why it's downtown, and it suits that demographic better for that position. They just didn't pick it. Well, I think the house burning down was a reason, but there's other reasons. Location. I mean, the families that would be there, they're located near the center of the community downtown. Where we put them way out in the Tules, the families can't get downtown as easily. So there was a whole array of other reasons why that area was a choice area.
So we all understand that. But what about those 5 families that are there now? Why can't they put a 6-plex or a 4-plex on that property? And if the other one's burned down, then we put another 4-plex? Why mow them all down and put these?
I thought they were presenting a good, strong development case to the town, an opportunity to develop a really nice center, allow more people to be able to come in and have affordable housing within our community. I thought it was a perfect idea, but it would be a nice development. Everything was thoughtfully thought out, and we were presented with a number of options that were all, I thought, were good for our community. We're all about growing our community and getting more people into our community. That's what that was presented to us for.
You're absolutely right. But the people that are surrounding neighbors have a voice as well. It's not just about, this big, beautiful, grandiose place that they're going to put in.
And that will be the same no matter where we ask or to put them. If we do move down the road to place them somewhere, it'll be up in the northeast, it'll be in the northwest. People in those areas will have concerns.
The only other thing I'd like to add, aside from a final design not being decided upon, would be the timeline after that. So I did ask if this was approved before the end of the year and the rezoning happened, what would be the likely timeline for submitting final design, development permits, all that type of thing. And they said that they have not got a plan or any kind of an idea just yet as in terms of the timeline. They're really just focusing on getting the rezoning application approved or passed, and then they would figure out the rest. So I have no idea how long it would be, whether it be next year or the year after, I really don't know. So that's just something else I wanted to add in case that factored into your decision making too.
Okay, so is there any more discussion? We have a motion to move for information by Deputy Mayor. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, capital or county funded projects, 13.3 CAO.
Madam Mayor, this is a rise and report from the committee of the whole meeting. If you would require any other information, Director Phillips would be pleased to give it to you.
Any discussion? Somebody want to make that motion? Councillor Wilson?
I'll make that motion. You should give me something tonight.
All in favor? Carried. Capital paving project for funding for 92nd Street.
Madam Mayor, this is also a rise and report from your committee of the whole meeting. Administration is looking for a motion for council's permission to look for sources of funding for that project.
With that.
Deputy Mayor, did you have something to say?
Yeah, after some discussion this afternoon, Madam Mayor, I would like to separate both projects. One project could inhibit the other, as one might be. So 114th Avenue can be an improvement project. It would include widening from just over 7.5 meters to 10 meters wide, and that might fall under the STIP program, where paving usually is disallowed. So I'd like to separate them into two separate applications, so we're not inhibiting any funding from either source. So it would still be two projects. One would be paving or the 92nd Street resurfacing, and the second project would be 114th Avenue improvement. STIP does not cover paving, but they do cover Resource Road building and improvement to a certain level. So I don't want one to stop funding on that.
So you want us to take 192nd out as one motion. Where is the funding coming from? 92nd?
So, Madam Mayor, this is to source funding. So all it is for us to have approval to seek out funding, and therefore there would be a potential commitment from council to cover the portion. We're looking at minimums of 50-50 funding and no less. This could also include private-public partnership funding also.
Deputy Mayor?
Could we not consider these both improvement projects? Both of them need to be widened out, like they're...
Yes, Deputy Mayor. The problem is STIP specifically says they do not cover asphalt resurfacing. So if we put both in as one project, they could deny it on the 92nd Street, and we would have no opportunity to improve 114. One is close, the other one is a definite no. So that eliminates one funding aspect right there. So on their own, they both have their own aspects, but one may be funded and one may be not.
What if we put the one back to gravel? Would they then fund it then? And did
That
the
is a
one-
possibility, yes.
Put which one back to gravel?
114. So 114th Avenue is from Highway 35 right to 92nd Street, which is the local entrance. That road is currently 7.8 meters wide, and that would include 10 meters. It would widen it to 10 meters and allow also for 2 future overlays in the future if we ever needed to overlay it again. So that's the major improvement, is to widen the main resource, which is not only used by the mill but other industries within that area, and that's to look at 114. And 92nd Street is simply just putting, taking 30 mills off and adding another 80 mills of new asphalt over top to fill all the dips. The structure of the road is fine, it's just the surface is failing and collecting water. So it may fall under another funding program, and it may not.
So you're saying that would be a 50-50 if, most likely?
That would be the minimum. Well, we would search for all funding aspects, but typically funding is a 50-50 partnership. And 114th Avenue under STIP, they also look for public investment also, and we could have industry in the area support also fiscally, which may make the application better. And it is our request to search out those funding opportunities to find the best deal for everybody involved.
See you.
Madam Mayor, if council wanted, they could just reword it to, and just separate it as the 92nd Street project and the 114th Avenue project. To look for sources of funding.
I'll amend my motion.
What's your original motion?
The recommendation.
Did you have something to say, Councillor Welke?
Oh,
Oh, it's page 98.
Yeah.
Those darn iPads. Too bad they didn't have a paper copy.
That's the page on Madam Mayor.
It's like a bad kid.
I know.
Yeah, but I don't see it's a different format, and I don't see the recommendation.
You don't, there isn't a recommendation there.
This discussion, Madam Mayor, came out of our capital project meeting, and it was due to the deadlines, and we would not have a capital project and budget completed before the deadlines at the end of November. So this was just to get the applications in right away to see what would fly.
So look at the motions on the screen.
I forget you guys are watching my mess.
I think we want to call them both improvement project.
And I want you to read this note. I told you guys. You don't get to see it. We're at odds this evening.
So just the council approve administration source funding for the 92nd Avenue.
Which means we're not committed.
Right, we're just sourcing it, yeah.
Exactly. We need a resolution to show that we are looking to proceed, and it's not a want or wish item.
And funding.
And for
This
just.
is an unplanned, unbudgeted capital project that should qualify under some of these programs.
We threw that out there.
If we wouldn't have ever thought of it, we might have got funding for it.
There you go. Planning is apparently not a good thing.
While we're in a lull of conversation here, waiting for the resolution, which was not written out beforehand, I'd like to say thank you to the operations for getting our fire guard all spruced up. If none of you have seen it, it looks fantastic. So thank you for Pinnacle and you for getting that all underway.
That was,
Well, you probably won't see it now, there's snow there.
BJ Hinson contract.
Oh, sorry, BJ Hinson. So if you've been down the walking trail, it looks fantastic. There's no logs sticking up
And we
anymore.
were hoping to seed it before it snowed, but that kind of changed it.
Yeah.
But it's supposed to melt tomorrow, so let's hope.
Okay, are we ready? Okay, all in favor? Carried. Do we need one for this? Is this the same one?
They're both projects are separated, but
Yeah.
included in the motion.
So all in favor of Deputy Mayor's second motion?
I think it's all in one motion.
Yeah, it's all in one motion.
Oh, it is. I can't read it this far. Oh, I see it now. Well, this owl's in my way.
Is that better?
Yes. Okay, so the naming and sponsorship of the multi-evacuation facility.
Madam Mayor, I will defer this to Director Rolfe.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So we're currently working with Sahari Architects to complete our conceptual design. We're starting to move forward to the engineering phase. We're at the point where we feel we need to start looking at project funding in addition to leveraging the provincial and federal government. Well, we're recommending that a strategy be developed for sponsorship and naming rights. Hiring an outside company with expertise in the design and evaluation or audit of opportunities will help guide us. We feel that they'd be able to develop the sales material, contract templates, communications plan, and then council would be provided with a comprehensive background leveraging opportunities to assist us in our fundraising goals. I have reviewed the references for the company I'm suggesting for the sponsorship group. I talked to 3 other municipalities and I feel confident in their abilities. I've also included in council's package their marketing brochure that shows their extensive background with municipalities across Canada. We're looking at $27,500 for this contract. We had allocated $650,000 for initial conceptual design. We're committed to about $500,000 at this point. We still need to look at a geotechnical and a cost consultant, so we're well within the funds that we had already allocated. So I'm suggesting to council that we move forward with this.
So what happened to the old days where you knocked on a business's door and said, let's have coffee? How much money do you have? And would you mind?
And that's going to happen, but with that, we're going to be totally transparent. We're going to be giving a lot of business the same opportunities. We're going to be coming back to council and talking about which companies we should be petitioning for what type of naming rights or sponsorships or donations. We'll have a complete package, so council would feel confident in what they're going forward with, and we'll be going forward like in a unified manner. I think we have some excellent relationships with our corporate partners, and I think having the material and so that we're clear in what we're asking for would be of value.
Any discussion, council? Yes.
I think this is a great idea. I just wonder if we're a little early in the game. You know, to spend this kind of money if it turns out we're not able to source any other levels of funding would be my only concern.
Madam Mayor, we've been on a number of calls with a number of government agencies, and the mayor was able to join us on some here last week. And the question is now becoming, what are you doing? What are we contributing toward the project? So this would help us identify those potential sponsorship, which would then give council a better idea of what it would be looking for, what the municipal ask would be.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Yes.
Did we seek multiple companies to perform this contract, or?
No, we didn't.
Okay.
This is the architect you're working with, though, is it?
No, this is another company.
Oh.
Yeah.
This is their only business?
Yeah.
I did speak to the one municipality who had put out an RFP and they had 9 responses, and several of them were Alberta companies, and they felt this was by far the best company, and they felt that they really did deliver on their expectations. They're very pleased with them. So I got that strongly from the 3 municipalities I spoke with.
So understanding that as a municipality, don't we have to send it out to multiple?
It's under the limit.
Yeah.
It's under the limit. We
Okay.
could request 3 quotes, so we could take this background and put it out and ask to see what else we get. I felt confident with doing the reference checks.
I'll entertain a motion. Or not.
I'll make a motion that we proceed.
Councillor Anderson makes a motion that we proceed with the sponsorship contract. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. The proposed bylaw for intermunicipal collaboration name word change.
Madam Mayor, I will pass this to Ms. Beaton to.
I will throw myself under the bus. In haste to get this done properly, I had suggested to council to pass a resolution to adopt it, which that was my default. I went right to the MGA, that's what the MGA said was a bylaw or a resolution. So I think we were posting it on the website to actually have it under whatever, when I caught the words matching bylaw, I went back through it and went, oh, Clark, I think we need, so I told him I'll take the hit for the team on this one.
So McKinsey County did pass this by bylaw, so it's our suggestion that we do the same.
Yes, they did it in March.
So we adopt it instead of approve it.
Well, you can pass a resolution, but the county had requested that we actually have a mutually matching bylaws for it.
Okay.
So that's what I'm bringing forward today, so we can do all 3 readings. They were able to do all 4, actually, unanimous consent at their council meeting.
Okay.
And Municipal Affairs is, what should I say this out loud? They have not questioned the fact that we actually submitted the documentation has been submitted, so nobody has called us back and said, no bylaw.
Okay.
We were told at an AUMA update meeting that the province was no longer going to require us to file these, that as long as we said we had one, they changed midstream, so.
They actually phoned.
Sorry, that was not what they told us at the AUMA last year. I have no problem with this, I'm just, the province has flip-flopped a couple times, so I don't think you have to throw yourself completely under the bus.
Well, we are right. We are right. Is it under the MGA, we're right. But they also extended the date another year, so.
Okay, could I have a first mover for first reading? Councillor Morgan. All in favor? Carried. Could I have a mover for second reading?
I'll move second.
Councillor Jessamine. All in favor? Carried. Could I have a mover for unanimous consent?
I'll move for unanimous consent.
Councillor Wilkie. What's the matter?
We just have to catch up. Okay, so I've got my Councilor Maroon for first, Councilor Jessamine for second, Councilor Wilkie for
All in front of me.
We're supposed to be front and center first.
I was going to move myself.
Okay, Madam Mayor.
Okay, could I have a mover for third reading? Councillor Forrest, all in favor? Carried.
Did we vote on unanimous consent?
Yes? Yes.
Oh, Madam Mayor, that was my question, is did
Oh,
we
sorry, I
complete
guess-
the vote for unanimous consent?
Is that when you called the halt?
Well, we just need to catch up on the motion. Sorry, we were recording, I thought.
And I heard one name and Councilor Morgan was doing this, so I didn't know.
I know they do that to me all the time.
Trying to set it.
Could I have all in favor of unanimous consent? Carried. He's always doing that to me.
I'm not. Thank you.
Okay, Remembrance Day.
Madam Mayor, we've had a discussion within administration about how Remembrance Day ceremonies would take place this year. So I would ask Director Schmidt just to give an outline of administration's recommendation.
Madam Mayor, thank you. So administration's had a lot of discussions about Remembrance Day in the last couple of weeks. As you know, it's about 2 weeks away. With the current restrictions due to COVID with Alberta Health Services, we cannot have an indoor gathering more than 50 people. On top of that, the location that we usually do our Remembrance Day ceremony is close to the public, so we're not allowed to have gatherings in the high school anymore. And of course, our facilities aren't really, we don't have another facility in the town to hold our Remembrance Day ceremony safely with a number of people. So, so we've come up with an option to run by council today. If council is fine with this game plan, we'll start moving ahead on it tomorrow. It is, we've added around an option of, a live online presentation versus this presentation. We feel that the presentation will give us some time to actually basically build the presentation over the next couple of weeks and then have it streamed to the public on Remembrance Day, so it's all timed together. So at 11 o'clock we will still have like the last post and so on, but essentially this program would be worked on over the next couple of weeks and built, and then basically we'd advertise to the public that at 10:30 or whatever the timing is to bring that right to 11 o'clock, we would just kind of release it essentially in an online video that we put together. So so that's kind of the plan, using video grabs and pre-recorded as your address. We would pre-record that. We would do the intros that we would normally do, and kind of whatever you call it, the history lesson that we usually do is done ahead of time, and then we put it all together and present it to the public. What this would mean is there would be no public gathering for Remembrance Day, but we would, our intention is we would still have a small wreath laying ceremony. Just advise the public that we'll be doing some wreath laying, so we'll just have the uniform services. Mayor and council want to attend because it's outside. We'll just do a wreath laying ceremony there, right, like at the cenotaph after. I just, sorry. I'll let Scott grab that. Sorry, my phone was ringing the radio at the same time. So essentially, so we would have so we would have basically this presentation, then we would allow to say to the public, if you'd like to put your poppies or lay your own wreath at the cenotaph, we would do so, but we would still have a small contingent of people to go lay some of the wreaths at the cenotaph following the ceremony. So basically, you see the presentation here, it's essentially the same presentation that we would do every year. We would just build it for an online presentation ahead. Then there would be no march, we would just have some people at the cenotaph. We would lay the wreaths, between 11 and 12 o'clock, have the wreaths there for the day, like we normally would have. We would not have the march, we would not have the public presentation. So that's basically what we're looking at. And it seems to be in line with a lot of the other communities are not doing like in-person ceremonies this year.
So you say we would stand at the cenotaph from 11 to 12 to lay the wreaths?
We would invite people if they wanted to attend, but we're not going to have a march, so we're just going to bring the wreaths. We will have not a long list of wreaths, we're just going to lay a few of the wreaths. The Government of Canada, the Province of Alberta wreath, we'll just lay them. We'll get hold of the RCMP. To our knowledge, the cadets can't even gather without special permission, so there's lots of things that we just can't do normally this year. So to make the best of Remembrance Day, still have some sort of way to signify that at the cenotaph, we would just gather a few of the fire department members, the RCMP, invite the rangers. We would just do some, lay 3 or 4 wreaths, some of the main wreaths, and then just invite the public if they want to come in on their own time during the day and lay a poppy or whatever they want to do. But we wouldn't have like a designated ceremony for that, if that makes sense.
So they can just come and put their pop in whenever.
At their own leisure, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So not really having an event in
Mhm.
person as such. That also takes away some of the issues that we've had, like last year we had such extreme cold, we couldn't even make it to the cenotaph, so we did this wreath laying at the high school, so this would be very similar. We're just gonna pull up there, lay the wreaths, have a 10-minute ceremony, and we would leave. So it's not really a formal event.
Is council good with that? Okay, yes,
Question, Madam Mayor.
yes.
Would it be possible for council to view the presentation on our new inflatable movie screen?
I haven't ordered it yet.
If it's here on time?
Not if it's minus 32 this year like it was last year.
Can we have it?
I mean a special viewing in council chambers. Yeah.
Councillor Jessman asked if we could do the wreath laying here at the town hall
I never asked that.
instead of,
You mean in the council chambers?
no, outside.
Outside.
Yeah, I mean, if it's council's wish, we can definitely do that.
Yeah.
What does council, rather have it at the cenotaph or here?
Cenotaph.
Okay. Alice?
It really doesn't matter that much to me. Either place.
No, I think the cenotaph has a certain symbolic meaning, I would think, at the cenotaph. Just popped into my mind another question. If the Legion building is ultimately going to be removed, would it be possible to relocate the cenotaph to the town property and then it could always be here?
No, we're going to build a park there
Okay, but the
in
cenotaph,
honor of the,
yes, but.
that's a different discussion.
No,
Cenotaph,
Cenotaph.
sorry, defeated.
I didn't say the town hall, you put that in, I threw you in the bus now. There won't be anybody downtown anyway, because there won't be anybody in downtown.
There's no place for them to.
You want to put them all over the outskirts.
Okay, so would somebody move that for information, please?
I'll move for it.
Councillor Anderson, all in favor? Carried. Could I have someone move the correspondence for information?
Sorry, can we talk about 15.4?
Yes? 15.4?
Yes.
We moved it out before.
Yeah, my apologies. So do we have a plan in place? Is council presence required or requested? Is this?
I don't think there's a limit on how many we can have attend that. I think it would be a good idea for as many councils are available at 1 o'clock on the 16th to attend that. We can RSVP on behalf of anyone who's interested. We have been gathering information from previous submissions, and we had also, Keith and I haven't discussed this, but or I think we have discussed maybe actually asking Lumex to see if they would, I'm sure they've done this in a couple of other places to assist us with whatever presentation we might have.
Did you find any more recent presentation?
No, all we found was the 2004, 2008.
Hmm.
Spruce it up.
Yes.
When you now have all the updated statistics from the movements over the last X number of years, the fire event last year, the fire event in, when was it, 2012?
15.
15 is the last big one?
15 to 19, yeah. And both have good traffic figures. Yeah, we'll pull all of those stats.
Anyway, I'm prepared to move that the entire council participate in the meeting. I think a show of force is, not necessarily a show of force, but to indicate our extreme level of concern about what it would do to the entire region if we were to lose flight safety services.
You would like everybody to come on? All available
We can
council?
register the entire.
All available council. Okay. So I'm not looking to speak for anyone else.
Just because you're off on Mondays.
I'm not actually, but I'll make a concerted effort to be there.
So you will send an invite to all council?
Yes, I will, Madam Mayor.
All in favor of that motion, council? Carried. Could I have someone move the rest of the information for information? Councillor Morgan, all in favor? Carried. Could I have a that ends our public portion of our meeting tonight, so thank you for joining us.